Hi, Anne. So good to see you this afternoon. It's great to be engaging in this event. Do you want to kind of say a few words first?
Yes, my name is Anne Moulds. I'm the founder and the chief executive of the charity Action Against Stalking. And that came from a campaigning body that was launched in 2009 to bring have stalking recognised as a criminal offence in Scottish law, and it set the blueprint for England and Wales to follow suit, took the campaign to Europe, and we got stalking recognised into the European Convention to combat violence against women and girls. And since then, we've been building upon that work, raising awareness about stalking, the impact it has on its victims, and driving forward changes, getting psychological abuse, harmful abusive behaviour, psychological impact recognised as the governing criteria of an offence has been a huge paradigm shift.
Mm,
Um,
mhm.
and not even just here in Scotland, but across the whole UK. Um, and it's changing how we think about victims who engage with our criminal justice process.
It's been an amazing journey that you've gone on and had such a lot of impact. It must be so rewarding to be involved in this work. Yeah. So Um, my name's Ross Deuchar and I work for the University of the West of Scotland. So I'm a professor in criminology and criminal justice there. So for the last 13, 14 years, a lot of my work has been on looking at disadvantaged young people in particular and looking at issues such as gang culture and what drives young people to participate in those things, looking at the root causes, for instance, adverse childhood experiences, trauma that sometimes leads young people to participate in gangs. And of course, I suppose in the contemporary period, also looking at the relationship with the drug culture. So what I've found in a lot of my research and the research others have done is that gang culture has evolved quite a lot in the west of Scotland, in particular, where instead of territorial street fighting and violence now, there's not so much of that, but there's a lot more emphasis on drugs and drug distribution, and younger people becoming involved in that. And I've also worked internationally in the United States, in Denmark, in Hong Kong. And so I've always been really interested in disadvantage, and also the way in which young people can often become manipulated and coerced, sometimes to participate in these kinds of things, for instance, by organised crime groups and by drug dealers. So harmful behaviour and coercion, control, and the links with violence and with organised crime and young people's, vulnerability to become involved in these things has always interested me. So I think actually, although I haven't done necessarily any research directly on stalking, I think a lot of the sub-themes that I've been involved in relate really, really well to the work that you're involved in as well, Anne.
Well, that's right, and that was going to be one of our strengths, because we're absolutely delighted to be working in partnership with the University West of Scotland for the new Centre of Action Against Stalking, Centre for Research, because when we look at stalking, we're looking at how it links to other very serious forms of violence, harmful and abusive behaviour. We hear of stalking, about ex-partner stalking. That's probably the best known out there, but we can't. We've got to raise more awareness about human trafficking, stalking and its links to human trafficking, stalking and its links to sexual exploitation, stalking and its links to bullying. And we're looking at not just a stalker, we're looking at gang stalking as well. And we're looking at organised crime, we're looking at the sexual predatory stalkers. Now, we're aware of them. We've heard of the Rotherham case, we've heard of all these big um, child abuse rings that are happening, and underneath that are all these stalking, grooming behaviours. So, and we're also looking at racial and community hatred, racial hatred crimes that are happening within our streets. That's a big subject in the news just now. Looking at Britain. So yes, we link in so many ways, Ross, the underlying themes and these threads move into the work that you're doing as well, which is fascinating. And it doesn't just take us into criminology, it takes us into psychology, it takes us into sociology, to all those different fields of study that we can tap into with the university, with forensics as well. So it covers the whole area. I've always said that stalking is the perfect petri dish for studying interpersonal violence at all different levels.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And you mentioned things like forensics as well, and I've been involved in a lot of policing research as well, so I'm interested in that side of things, you know, the police responses and the law enforcement responses to things like stalking and coercive control, harmful behaviour, and so on as well. So I think there's loads of points of connection. So I was delighted as well Action Against Stalking has had a collaboration with our university for a few years now, but I was delighted when we made the decision to take that further and collaboratively to establish the new Centre for Action Against Stalking, which is going to be launched just later this month officially. And what we're hoping from that centre is that we're aiming to be an interdisciplinary centre of excellence, as you mentioned, Anne, because there's so many disciplines and so much academic interest in these subjects, you know, from psychology, criminology, criminal justice, education, social work. You know, there's so many disciplines that it links to, really.
Yeah, and one of the most important aspects is throughout the 11 years that I've been doing this work is the lack of research. Lack of research, up-to-date empirical research. Most of it comes from Australia and America. And we've got fragments here and there, but it's out of date. The majority of it is out of date. For example, we'll talk about our international conference just shortly. One of the themes that I would like to have had discussed at the conference was juvenile stalking, looking at stalking within the younger population. And there's only one piece of research available. There's not a lot to build on. So when we're trying to speak about stalking and explain what stalking is and provide some of these statistics to back up what we claim, we're having great difficulty. Until we can build this library of research, up-to-date empirical research on this crime, we're going to struggle to move forward. And that's where this joint collaboration with the university under the new Action Against Stalking Centre is going to be so powerful, because we will have that international outreach.
Yeah.
We're working with other universities across the world. That's what I said, global solutions. It's time we actually embrace technology, utilize the power of it, and develop these digital solutions that we can work with worldwide and address this crime on a global basis, because it's a global crime.
Absolutely. And, you know, UWS as a university is very committed to research, and particularly applied research. And what we're aiming to do in this centre, as you mentioned, Anne, is to pursue research funding nationally and internationally to grow knowledge in this field, and so as we have more insight about how best to prevent it. But also we want to develop an international community of interest in these areas, and to create opportunities for masters and doctoral level students to come together. We already have one doctoral student who is just beginning her studies later this month, and we're hoping to grow that in the months and years to come. And we also hope to be able to draw upon the research that we do to inform policy development at this level, not only nationally but also internationally.
Yes, and there's nobody really doing that. Everyone's working in their own silos, doing, a lot of good work. But if we can have that joint collaboration,
Yeah, absolutely.
good practice as well. So, and when we're looking at the conference, we're about to launch
Yeah,
the first ever international stalking conference, which will
yeah,
be held online, a virtual event. What we're going to try and do is cover some of these themes in the conference. It's all about who are our stalkers, try and raise profile to all the different typologies of stalkers, the impact on the victim. We're going to be listening to police from across the UK and from America as well, about solutions to addressing this crime. We've got some of the top stalking experts in the world all coming together in this conference to educate, to inform, and to share some of their good practice. So this is an exciting event
yeah, really exciting.
between the 20th and the 22nd of April. And I'm hoping that from this event, that this sets the platform for other big events, international events, where we're bringing together all these top people to help inform about stalking.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we had a really exciting seminar a couple of weeks ago where you yourself spoke, Anne, about the impact that COVID and the related restrictions have had on all of these issues as well. And we're hoping, very much planning, to have more of those kinds of single standalone seminars on the back of the conference. And in the years to come, I mean, I think the first year we've made the decision to focus on research into children and young people, the impact that stalking behaviour and harmful behaviour and abusive behaviour has on children and young people, but also looking at perpetrator profiles and cyber stalking. Those are some of our key themes. And from thereafter, we've got lots of other areas I think that we're planning to focus on as well.
Yes, and I'm actually looking at some of the messages that are coming in here, and it's quite disturbing to hear what's happening. One viewer has come in to say about inviting victims to speak as their specialists as well, and
Yeah.
can I just say absolutely, this whole charity started off from myself being a victim. I've walked the walk of being the victim, experienced the system, experienced the poor response by the system, experienced the lack of understanding, and at that time there was no such crime of stalking. And we do know that the police are doing a good job, but they're still not always getting it. And when I've just read this person who sent in this message, quite tragic to hear it, but we still have a lot of work to do to help support the police recognise what is this crime, how do they identify it, because stalking's unlike other crimes, it's a victim defined crime, it's the impact on the victim. And
Yeah.
a lot of the incidents on their own can often appear harmless, benign. They can be normal behaviours that we all engage in every day, but placed within a stalking context, they are less than harmless. They're sinister and they can escalate. And sometimes by the time the police recognise it or the police intervene, by that time the damage to the victim's quite extreme. So we're needing to educate and try and get those victims as much help as they can so that this crime is recognised as much as they can. So I agree with the person who's just written in, yes, victims are specialists. They're the ones that have walked the walk. They have worn the T-shirt. They know what it's like. Unfortunately, we can't have everyone speaking at our conference, but if you can contact actionagainstalking.org, if you go onto our website, and even if you can provide a statement or something, we could have a look at it and see whether that's something we could use further down the line. Because I think the power of the victim's voice is very, very important.
Yeah, and where can people register for the conference, Anne? Where is the link?
Through our website, www.actionagainstalking.org. All the information is on our website.
Everything's there. No, that's great. So, and it was very interesting to see that person that had just put some comments in the group chat, made the connection there between stalking and drugs. You know, that this person's stalker had been involved in the drug trade as well. You know, so there's that link, you know, that I was talking about earlier. Drug distribution, coercive control, abusive behaviour, stalking, you know, it's almost like a perfect storm sometimes, isn't it?
It is actually, absolutely. And, you know, someone else has just written in to say how about a victim's voice event in the future. I think that would be invaluable. I think that would be a great idea, and that's something that we could look at is bringing in the victim's voice more, really highlighting that. One of the challenges we've had is getting people to speak out. Stalking is quite a unique crime, private type of crime, and stalkers can become so obsessed with stalking their victims that they continue, even sometimes after, you know, behind bars. They just are not going to stop. And many victims feel scared to speak out, and it escalates the behaviour, or they attract more trouble onto their doorstep, or they make the person who stalked them angry, and it causes them more grief. So there's people are scared, victims are scared. And we found this throughout, you know, over the past 11 years. Every time the newspapers come to us looking for, you know, some statements or a story, they always ask, do you have anyone who would speak out, a victim who would speak out? And we've often had trouble with that because victims are scared.
Yeah.
Put their head above the parapet because they actually don't know what's going to happen to them.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's about giving the victims a voice, and somebody's just saying, you know, how important that is in the group chat there. And delighted to see Karen coming in. Karen Fullerton Chalmers is our first PhD student linked to the centre, and we're very much looking forward to her beginning her studies with us as well, and hopefully it'll be the first of many.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, and in the years to come, some of the areas that we've mapped out for important areas for research are looking, for instance, at perpetrator gender differences, because there's a lack of research highlighting the prevalence of the impact on male victims, for example, as well as female victims. And then looking, for instance, at workplace stalking. The way in which, you know, the workplace can provide an environment for these kinds of crimes, and also police approaches to stalking, and looking at victim coping strategies. So lots of really important and interesting areas that we're going to be focusing on.
Yes, and we will establish these links, strengthening these links, because when I hear about young people, and we've tried to raise this within schools a lot, you know, we hear about the predator, but we never hear about the predatory stalker. When we're looking online, it's about cyber harassment, cyber bullying. But when it comes to young people, we don't hear the word stalking, cyber stalking.
No.
Got to help our young people understand what stalking is, what constitutes it. We can't all of a sudden say, oh, stalking's an adult problem. You're being cyber bullied and cyber harassed, but when you are legally at that age to be called an adult, actually it'll now be stalking. So we've really got to clear up the language that we're using around stalking. We've got to clear up all the confusion about what it is, where it links to, and help our young people. What we're asking for actually is young people to come on board with us. Young people are the voice of change. They have got the most powerful voices
Yeah.
the world, and young people can be that voice for social change. And
Absolutely.
if we can encourage young people to come on board with us and help drive this forward, and let's make this world a slightly safer place for everyone.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So delighted to be working with you, Anne. Really looking forward to it, and it's one of the most exciting initiatives I've been involved in. And I think we've got a really stimulating road ahead in terms of doing this research and all the related activity we're going to be involved in.
And I think it'll grow arms and legs, and I think that the tree will grow big branches and will reach out to other parts of the world and join with other like-minded professionals and really serve the victims that we're here to serve and try and get things the best we can for them. And the conference is going to be one big exciting event. So yes, looking forward to working with you, Ross, now and in the future, and to our big international conference.
Brilliant. Thanks, Anne. Good to work with you this afternoon and in the future.
Yes, back to the drawing board and get this conference organised now.
Yeah.
Fabulous team behind the scenes, by the way, working so hard. It's incredible to make this a very successful event. So thanks to everyone out there who's putting a lot of hard work into making all this possible.
Yeah. Look forward to seeing some of you out there at the conference.
Excellent, yes.
Thank you.
It's fun.